This passage is a personal reflective narrative called An Open Heart. While you read this passage on the first read, I want you to pay attention to two things. I want you to pay attention to the tone of the passage and if there are any words that give you a positive or negative connotation. Secondly, while you're reading on this first read, I want you to pay attention to any words which repeat. An open heart. When I was 8 years old, my father, a union organizer in the 40s and 50s, was blacklisted, accused of communist activities. It meant no work with a vengeance. My mother, then in her 40s, had twin boys that spring, premature, and in pre-Medicare times, you can imagine the devastating cost for their care. I was hungry that year. Hungry when I got up. Hungry when I went to school. Hungry when I went to sleep. In November, I was asked to leave school because I only had boys' clothes to wear, hand-me-downs from a neighbor. I could come back, they said, when I dressed like a young lady. The week before Christmas, the power and gas were disconnected. We ate soup made from carrots, potatoes, cabbage, and grain mint to feed chickens, cooked on our wood garbage burner. Even as an 8-year-old, I knew the kind of hunger we had was nothing compared to people in India and Africa. I don't think we could have died in our middle-class Vancouver suburb. But I do know that the pain of hunger is intensified and brutal when you live in the midst of plenty. As Christmas preparations increased, I felt more and more isolated and excluded, set apart. I felt a deep, abiding hunger for more than food. Christmas Eve day came gray and full of the bleak, sleety rain of a West Coast winter. 2 women, strangers, struggled up our driveway, loaded down with bags. They left before my mother answered the door. The porch was full of groceries, milk, butter, bread, cheese, and Christmas oranges. We never knew who they were, and after that day, pride being what it was, we never spoke of them again. But I'm 45 years old, and I remember them well. Since then, I've crafted a life of joy and independence, if not of financial security. Several years ago, living in Victoria, my son and I were walking up the street, once more in West Coast sleet and rain. It was just before Christmas, and we were, as usual, counting our pennies to see if we'd have enough for all our festive treats, juggling these against the necessities. A young man stepped in front of me, very pale and carrying an old sleeping bag, and asked for spare change, not unusual in downtown Victoria. No, I said and walked on. Something hit me like a physical blow about a block later. I left my son and walked back to find the young man. I gave him some of our Christmas luxury money, folded into a small square and tucked into his hand. It wasn't much, only $10, but as I turned away, I saw the look of hopelessness turned into amazement and then joy. Well, said that rational part of my mind, Judith, you are a fool. You know he's going up the street to the King's Hotel and spend it on drink or drugs. You've taken what belongs to your family and spent it on a frivolous romantic impulse. As I was lecturing myself on gullibility and sensible charity, I noticed the young man with the sleeping bag walking quickly up the opposite side of the street, heading straight for the Kings. Well, let this be a lesson, said the rational Judith. To really rub it in, I decided to follow him. Just before the Kings, he turned into a corner grocery store. I watched through the window, through the poinsettias and the stand-up Santas. I watched him buy milk, butter, bread, cheese, and Christmas oranges. Now, I have no idea how that young man arrived on the street in Victoria, nor will I even have any real grasp of the events that led my family to a dark and hungry December. But I do know that charity cannot be treated as a bank deposit. There is no best investment way to give, no way to ensure value for our dollar. Like the Magi, these three, the two older women struggling up the driveway, and the young man with the sleeping bag, gave me and continue to give me wonderful gifts. The reminder that love and charity come most truly and abundantly from an open and non-judgmental heart.